Hi, my name is Jennifer Peach. My evaluation project is on the comparing the efficacy of EGALA model equine-assisted psychotherapy versus office therapy for children and adolescents with mental health problems. My evaluation took place at PBJ Connections, which is located in Pataskala, Ohio. It is the main purpose of PBJ Connections. It was founded to provide equine-assisted psychotherapy for children. Today, it provides both equine-assisted psychotherapy and traditional office therapy for both children and adults. So pretty much covers the entire lifespan, either with horses or in the office. But for this particular evaluation, I was looking at children and adolescents with mental health problems. The goal of the treatment of this evaluation was for improved overall mental health. And the question that I had that was guiding this evaluation was, did children and adolescents with mental health problems participating in equine-assisted psychotherapy experience the same or greater improvement in overall mental health than those participating in office therapy? I just wanted to show a quick video about the EGALA model because it's something that everyone is familiar with. It is a very different modality of psychotherapy.
The EGALA model is a unique model of psychotherapy, not just because we use horses, but because we use the client's experience with the horses to drive change.
Horses are amazing. They're very intelligent animals. They sense where you're at, sometimes even more so than you do, which is why they make such great partners in therapy.
EGALA's changed my life in so many ways. I mean, a lot of times we forget the things that are said in a therapeutic setting at a desk. You never forget those horses.
When the focus is on the horses, it goes off of the individual, and so the individual is more able to experience some kind of awareness for themselves or understanding in ways that they weren't able to before as they see the horses.
EGALA provides them a safe place. Everybody is going through the same thing pretty much.
The horses are going to pick up on things as humans we can't. So if there's some internal feelings going on that maybe are not matching the exterior, the horses pick up on that. And whether or not you might be able to fake it with the people around you, you won't be able to do that with the horses.
I had this group of kids, and they said, I quit this horse. And at the end, they said that what they learned was maybe when things get hard in your relationship, you could hang in there and work through things instead of quitting. And they all, at one time or another, would just start crying and would tell what it was like when people quit on them. And they didn't want the horses to feel the way they felt in their lives.
There is a lot more to the EGALA model than I can explain in this short amount of time, but that's just a quick overview and a little insight into what it is. EGALA used to stand for the Equine Assisted Growth and Learning Association. They've gotten away from that acronym, but still use the title EGALA. And EGALA does consider itself to be the global standard in equine-assisted psychotherapy, mostly because it is the most widely recognized. And there is not a whole lot of research on equine-assisted psychotherapy out there, but it is starting to become more widely recognized. Most of the evidence right now available for equine-assisted psychotherapy is anecdotal. Any person that has worked in this field has lots of stories and case studies about specific clients that have made great strides, but there's been very little research. It's been very difficult for funding, to find funding and that kind of thing. However, for youth and adolescents with mental health problems, CBT is probably the most widely used treatment modality. There are a few others, but most of the research that I found was around CBT. And I didn't find any systematic reviews on equine-assisted psychotherapy, but like I said, there's really not a whole lot of research out there, so there's really not enough research to even create a systematic review. This is just the logic model that I used in developing this evaluation project. For the equine-assisted psychotherapy, obviously you need horses. EGALA does require that at least one of the professionals in the treatment team is certified through EGALA, and that brings me to the treatment team. There is, in addition to a mental health professional in EGALA model equine-assisted psychotherapy sessions, there's also an additional person in the sessions that's an equine specialist, and that is basically just a horse expert, and they do some observation around the horse's behaviors and that kind of thing, and can ask some questions about that. The whole EGALA model is based on externalizing, and it's very client-centered, and the client is encouraged to externalize their kind of thoughts and their story onto the horses. So that's my logic model there for my equine-assisted psychotherapy treatment. The way I measured the client's progress was we had a survey that was actually created by PBJ Connections for the purpose of comparing equine-assisted psychotherapy to office therapy. It's a 25-question survey, and there are questions about mental health that in the survey can be filled out either by the client or by the client's guardian, and for each of the questions they're asked to rate themselves on a scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree. There's 5 options. It's strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, or strongly agree. So what I did was I assigned a numerical value to each of those answers. So strongly disagree was a value of 1, and strongly agree was a value of 5. So then the answers in between were assigned values accordingly. So what I did was I added up all the numerical values for all the answers to each of the questions, and that was what I called the overall mental health score for that particular client. So then I averaged, I took the clients who participated in equine-assisted psychotherapy and the clients who participated in office therapy. I averaged the overall mental health scores for each group. And then they did the survey initially on intake, and then they did the survey again later on after they'd been coming to therapy for a while. So I averaged the pre-treatment and post-treatment overall mental health scores, and you'll see that graph. This study had high faith and content validity, but the reliability was questionable because it is relying on a self-reported survey, so that's always a little bit questionable whether or not people are being completely honest. Like I mentioned, they were given a survey on intake, and then after they were in treatment for a while, one of the issues I had was that this data was actually pre-collected, so it was not on a specific, like it wasn't on the 8th session or the 16th session. It was just kind of whenever the clinician remembered to give their client the survey, the follow-up survey. So there was some discrepancy in when those follow-up surveys were collected, and you'll see that as well. My evaluation design was a 2-group control and treatment group design. There were a few threats to internal validity with this study, and I really found these out after analyzing my data. Mortality was a big one. We had a lot of clients who filled out an intake survey and then never got to the second survey. So that also then resulted in a pretty small sample size. So those two kind of went together on that. And then testing, because the clients did receive the same survey on intake and at the end of treatment, that could create some biases, or clients could answer questions differently the second time they see them because they've had a little bit of time to think about them. So like I mentioned, this data was pre-collected by the agency, and it had just not been analyzed at this point. So I took that on. It was collected over the course of 2017 and the beginning of 2018. And like I already talked about, each of the answers were assigned numerical values, and we had the overall mental health score. The t-value on my statistical analysis was negative 1.02, and Cohen's d was 0.61. So basically I found that my data was not statistically significant, but did have some level of practical significance. So here on the left are the charts that I had for my data. As you can see, I ended up actually with a lot more participants who were just in the office therapy versus the equine therapy. And you can also see that in the equine therapy, I had 2 participants who had significantly more sessions than the other 2 participants. It was kind of varied over the office clients, kind of more evenly distributed there. And looking at this graph on the right, you can also see that the office clients overall started with quite a bit higher of an overall mental health score. Unfortunately, I did find that the overall mental health score for both groups decreased over the course of the evaluation. However, the equine group had a larger decrease, so I was surprised to find those results. And like I said, those were unexpected results. I think there were a lot of factors that went into that. For example, the sample size was small, but there were ended up being a lot more office clients than there were equine clients. I had to throw out a lot of the data because either there was no follow-up survey, or the person ended up doing equine and office therapy. There was no random assignment to groups. The clients just chose which one they wanted to do, and sometimes clients may try one and decide it's not for them and then switch to the other one. So there were a few of those that I had to throw out as well. One way I might change this evaluation would be to look at each question on the survey individually and compare the answers to each question versus just adding them all together, because some of the questions were more relevant than others, and some were more specific to, say, anxiety or depression. So I could maybe look at if equine-assisted psychotherapy was more effective in one specific diagnosis area than another. And then also implementing more rigid data collection guidelines. Like I mentioned, it kind of turned into whenever the client or whenever the clinician gets to it. So I might say every client needs to fill out a follow-up at their 8th session. This would likely affect the number of clients. Data we would be able to collect. As you saw, there were not a whole lot of clients that had that many sessions, but that would standardize things a little bit and just make it a little bit more consistent across the board.